I've scaled multiple e-commerce brands from 7 figures to 8 figures using Facebook ads. I virtually run ads in every single industry, from beauty, fashion, and wellness, all the way to sports, hydration, CPG, and way more. Along the way, I ran ads at VaynerMedia, one of the premier e-commerce agencies in the entire world. And then I went on to work at BarkBox, one of the largest direct-to-consumer brands in the entire United States with over 1 million active subscribers. Today, I own and operate the Moonlighters, where we help brands scale efficiently and profitably. In this video, I peel back the curtain. You are going to see my campaign setup, my ad structure, my ad set structure, how we build audiences, how we build ads, the right number of ads to run, the right number of audiences to run, our exact graduation and scaling program that we use for all of the brands that we work with. I'm even going to go as far as showing you the exact columns that I'm using to optimize my accounts today. So if you don't have the guts to stick around for 45 minutes or however long I actually make this video with how much I spill, then you're probably not going to make it. Keep in mind, this is very specific for e-commerce brands. If you're running broad awareness or your retail stores, this strategy can change. These are for brands who are trying to maximize their return on ad spend right now or reduce their cost per acquisition. We are going to create our campaign structure. Click the create button, click sales, and starting out, we are creating a manual sales campaign. We're going to call this prospecting. We're then going to go ahead and create a second campaign. It's going to be another sales campaign, and this is going to be an Advantage Plus shopping campaign. And we're just going to rename this ASC for Advantage Shopping Campaign. And then you guessed it, we're going to create one more campaign here where we actually are focused on existing customers. So this one here is going to be called retention. Right off the rip, you might notice, where's your retargeting? Why is this your setup? Why do you only have a prospecting, an ASC, and a retention campaign? What we have found is that Advantage Plus is better at retargeting than an actual retargeting campaign. You might ask, what if there's some weird case for your brand? What if you have a huge list of customers that you need to retarget that's not properly being tracked by the ASC campaign or something like that? In that case, keep this simple. Call this retention plus retargeting, and then you're going to have your retention and retargeting campaign, your ASC campaign, your prospecting campaign. Our primary prospecting campaign. This is our main campaign. This is where all the new creative gets launched. This is where everything we test goes into. It's where all of our primary interest groups are. It's where most of our creative goes at one point or another. The second campaign is our ASC campaign. The real core point of this campaign is that anything that works really well in prospecting gets graduated into the ASC campaign. And then finally, the retention plus retargeting campaign. If you have a very specific niche case where you need some retargeting in there, then you could push that in there as well. How would you separate your budgets? How much money are you spending per ad set and why? High level, we just want to spend money where it's most likely to make money. What you want to do is actually back out from retention and retargeting. There's a very simple formula that you can use for retention and retargeting to actually derive what you need your budget to be. So I'm just going to put retention and then how to decide your budget. So you're literally backing this into a frequency based on your audience size. First off, just take your audience size, whatever you have in that specific audience that you're targeting. So for example, let's say your customer list is a total of 2,000 people. You take your 2,000 people and you take your average CPM in your account. You can get your average CPM by just looking at your historicals, going over to your ad columns. It's in the preset columns, performance and clicks, and you could just go right here and find your average CPM. If you haven't run ads before, we're just going to roughly assume that your CPM is like $50 just to keep it super simple. So what CPM means is it's going to cost us $50 to reach 1,000 people. So in this case, with an audience size of 2,000 and a CPM of $50, that just simply means that it's going to cost us $100 to reach every single person on our audience list. There are some cases, depending on what industry you're in, where your CPM is like $8, $10, $3. Just know that it's not always 50. If this were the case, if this were the example, we would need $100 to reach our entire 2,000 person audience, roughly. So what we're going to want to do here is evaluate how often do we want to hit this group in totality. I'm going to assume that we only have a 50% match rate. So we only have 1,000, meaning we could reach all 1,000 people for just $50. How often do we want to reach all 1,000 people? Roughly speaking, on average, 5 times per week. We're literally just Xing by 5, meaning you could spend $250 per week on this audience and you will hit them at least 5 times a pop. If you have that 2,000 person audience, I would then simply just change this budget to $250 because that's the frequency that I want to optimize on. You could reduce this. Just look at your frequency, and that frequency is literally just the average number of times each person saw your ad. Next is your prospecting campaign. This is going to be set at a CBO level. Your prospecting campaign budget really depends on what you're trying to do. If you're only spending $100 per day, I would actually recommend you don't even launch this prospecting campaign and just run this ASC campaign with the retention and retargeting. However, if you're over that $100 mark, you're really trying to scale your business, you found a little bit bit of secret sauce, like things are working for you, now you really need to introduce that next level campaign so you have levers to pull. Within this prospecting campaign, this is going to at first represent at least 50 to 70% of our total budget. So I'm going to run on the assumption that we have a total of a $1,000 budget, and then we can simply take $1,000 minus the $250 we have so far, which is $750, and that would be our budget that we could share across ASC and prospecting. In this case, I'm going to drop this to around $600. So now we're at a total of $850, and then our ASC campaign is going to represent $150. You might ask, why on earth do we have an ASC campaign that's supposed to be our scale campaign with only representing $150 of the budget? Very simple. We don't have winning proven creatives yet. That graduation program that I keep hinting at, that's so critically important that we're going to get to by the end of this video, is so critical that it's done right and that we're not taking guesswork into what goes into this ASC campaign. Let's hop into the settings. We're going to start on our primary prospecting campaign. This campaign, of course, is going to be set up as sales. We are not going to be using catalogs for this example. However, if you are a catalog driven brand, if you have 5,000 products or something crazy, use a catalog, right? It's totally fine. We are going to use Advantage Campaign Budget, which is CBO. Then here's the big part. We are not going to be using highest volume or value. If you're just starting out, use highest volume or value, not a problem. However, if you are not just starting out, switch to a cost per result goal. And here's your definition of just starting out. If your account has over 50 purchases in the last 30 days, I have no problem with you switching to a cost cap. Right here, a cost per result goal. This is going to be the guiding factor for your entire account. We're going to set this to a cost per result goal, and that's going to be everything that you need to do on the campaign level for prospecting. We're then going to move to ASC. What's weird about ASC is that your settings are actually in your ad set level and your campaign level. It's a little bit different, but let me break it down here. So for ASC, of course, select your commerce account, your web and shop if you have it. Your cost per result goal is pre-selected, so you just need to enter what your cost cap needs to be. Make sure your attribution setting, again, is set to 7-day click, 1-day view. We want to maximize the number of signals that we have coming into the business. Make sure your audience locations are correct. And then for reporting, if you're running an ASC campaign, very, very easily, you can define existing customers and engaged audiences. For our case, we are not going to define anything because we are okay with Advantage Plus impeding on our existing campaigns. We don't mind. Moving on down, they just removed the existing customer budget cap. That's kind of been replaced by this piece right here from reporting perspective. And then everything else stays the same. Finally, moving on to the retention and retargeting campaign. This is going to be set up the exact same way as the prospecting campaign. We're going to use sales. We're using Advantage Plus campaign budget. We are switching the campaign bid strategy to a cost per result goal, and we are done. I'm going to pull us back for a second now and explain the critical importance of a cost per result or a cost cap. Basically, when we talk about cost caps, there is a lot of debate in the industry if it's worth it or if it's not worth it. I'm here to tell you that we've tested this across literally dozens and dozens of ad accounts, and nearly every single time cost caps win. The reason that they win is because you are actually guiding Facebook to not spend your money and not overspend. I am not talking to the business that does $300 million a year already. I'm talking to the business that are trying to grow very aggressively in that $1 to $20 million range right now. I'm also talking to you guys who are just starting out and have driven 20, 30, 40 sales, but can't get it to happen at the cost that you need per sale. What a cost cap does is it provides guidance. If we say, Facebook, get us a $50 cost cap, or we set our cost per result goal to $50, what it's going to do is going to take the last 30 days average. It's going to take your CPC, your CPM, your conversion rate, and a whole plethora of other metrics that I literally can't even comprehend because we cannot possibly think quicker than this algorithm can. It's going to determine if it could hit your $50 cost cap. In the first 7 to 14 days when you run a cost cap, you should expect turbulence. You should expect a variety of swings and waves during this period. What this whole setup is about is getting out of that learning phase as quick as possible and letting these cost caps do a lot of the legwork for you. You're going to spend drastically faster. You are going to hit your targets, and Facebook is not going to spend your money if it doesn't think it can get the return for you. If you can't get the return, Facebook will not spend your money. As you can see right here, Meta will aim to spend your entire budget and get you the most conversions using the highest volume bid strategy. That is what's default on every single campaign. This first big sentence here, you're going to spend your entire budget and get you the most. And we want to set clear expectations with all the advertising that we do. This second sentence here literally wraps it up perfectly for me. If keeping your average cost per result around a certain amount is important, enter a cost per result goal. Facebook is literally telling you on the label, if you need to get a specific ROAS or a specific cost per acquisition, can set this number because we are going to do everything we can to hit that number. We're going to break down to the ad set level. This is where a lot of the magic happens within this formula. So the ASC campaign literally does not have an ad set. It is literally just a campaign with ads. The campaign is the same thing as the ad set. They are on one level. Moving forward to the actual campaigns that do have ad sets, first starting on prospecting. If we drill down to our very first ad set, let's just name this. We're just going to call this 1, keep it really simple. You're going to want to run website and shop. If you could sell on the Facebook and Instagram shop, you absolutely want to sell there. We usually see a 20 to 30% lift by just enabling Facebook's shops and web and shop optimizations. Next, make sure you select your commerce account. And then because we have set a cost cap or a cost per result target on the campaign level, you have to actually set your cost per result goal here. Because this is a complicated formula, I'm actually going to break it down at the very end of this ad set section. If you set these wrong, you might not spend any money or you might overspend your money. Breaking down a little bit more, your attribution settings are 7-day click, 1-day view. You can't edit this. You get charged on the impression. We are not selecting dynamic creative and we are not setting an end date, nor are we budget scheduling or setting any spending limits on the ad set. For your audience controls, this is super, super important. Because we're running a primary prospecting campaign, they have changed these audience controls so drastically in the last year. You could tell right away by just looking at this, we can't even set our age limits to this specific audience. All we are setting is a minimum age at this point. If you've looked into your data, if you understand what your age range is there a specific gender that works better? Is there a location that outsizes all other locations? Make sure you make those adjustments here. And furthermore, make them at the advertiser settings level. You can find your advertising settings by just going to all tools and going to ad account settings. This is where you're going to be able to set all your geos, all your age limits, any restrictions that you have associated to your brand. Make sure you set them there. Moving down here, we have this very sneaky setting called the Advantage Plus audience. For this very first ad set, which is going to be a 100% broad audience, we're not touching anything. We're keeping it completely blank, no changes here. And then if we go down to placements, this is where you could actually edit your placements, create block lists, inventory filters. The only thing I care about here is that we are on moderate inventory. This is excluding any sensitive content, anything that's kind of just a no-no. We don't want to show up right beside it. However, if you're in a case where you just don't care, run expanded inventory. So that's going to be our prospecting ad set settings, and you're going to apply the exact same settings on your retargeting and retention campaign. That cost per result goal. How do we decide what that goal actually is? I'm just going to bring you a formula that allows you to know how you could derive it from different numbers. So one of the most common advertising metrics is return on ad spend or ROAS. Oftentimes when we talk about ROAS, everyone understands where their ROAS needs to be profitable. For example, if we're working with a brand that has a 30% margin, we might know that their ROAS roughly needs to be about 3 to be profitable. If we're working with a brand who has 50% margin, they need to be at a 2 to be profitable, and so on. Wherever you need your return on ad spend to be, I'm going to show you how you can set your cost control to that return on ad spend very, very easily. Just think of your cost control as the most amount of money that you're willing to pay for a new customer to purchase on your site. If your cost per acquisition target is, say, $100, and then slowly massage it down. Think about going from 100 to 98 to 95 to 90 and so on. What you don't want to do is cramp yourself just for the sake of making a few extra bucks. What you do want to do is work it down to a place that there is some constraint between your budget and your cost control. If you want to use your return on ad spend to figure out what does your cost per acquisition target need to be, all you need to do is take your revenue, divide that by the number of purchases, and then divide that whole thing again by your ROAS target. So if you want to hit a 2x, you need to set this to a 2. For example, if your revenue was $1,000 and that $1,000 took a total of 10 purchases, and then you divide that by a ROAS target of 2, so you'd have 1,000 divided by 10, so it would equal 100 divided by 2 equals 50. So that means if you set your cost cap to $50 on average, that will result you in a $100 purchase, and at your cost of goods and your ROAS target, you will then hit a 2x ROAS. Once you figure out what your cost cap target is, it's critically important that you roll it out across every single ad set, across every single campaign. I'm just going to set this to 50 because that's what we just did in that example. For our actual Advantage Plus campaign, we have to go to the campaign level and then set the cost per result to 50, and it will save automatically for you. And same thing on retention and retargeting. For this specific campaign, you might want to come up just a little bit higher because these audiences are going to be tight and Facebook might not recognize them. In this case, I would probably push this up to like 60. And usually what's going to happen, it's going to overperform. And then again, you could massage it down to 55, 50, and so on. Biggest question we get at the ad set level: what audiences do we run? We want to set up a 100% broad audience. It's going to be our core audience. It's going to be everything that gets tossed into here. It's going to be where we test a lot. Really important that we just set up this key number one ad set, broad audience. Second, we're going to literally literally just click a duplicate button here, and we're going to set up interest number 1. All you want to do is scroll down to your Advantage Plus audience, click audience suggestion. You're going to click down on this detailed targeting. You're going to click suggestions. When you click suggestions, you're going to see a bunch of suggestions that are specifically catered to you based on your previous audiences that you've run, or just based on the targeting that Facebook can see in your account, based on your creatives, based on what's run historically to this ad account, and potentially even based on your pixel and site. In this case, I would actually suggest you choose the very first one. Be mindful of the size of the audience. In this case, we have like an 18,000 to 20,000 person audience. That's just way too small. These are all job titles on the right side here and fields of studies. So I'm just going to scroll down until we find an interest, which is right here. This interest, as you can see by the audience size, we have a 55 million person interest. We don't need to define this anymore. We are using a single interest. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to test one additional interest alongside this. This exact interest is going to be most similar to the previous one we just created. Don't worry about overlap. It's really not a big deal, especially when we're dealing with 60 million potential people. There's just so much money to be spent into these audiences. The thing that I get asked all the time, how do you launch new ads into your existing campaigns or your existing ad sets? Whenever you have a new ad that you need to launch in your account, completely new set of ads, 4 to 6 ads that you're going to launch, you simply take this 100% broad audience, you quickly duplicate it, and we're just going to use the most basic naming convention. We're just naming this broad pack 2. You might want to add like the date these things have launched just so you can keep a good eye on things, but you don't need to overwhelm yourself with this. That's everything I would recommend from a prospecting perspective. For retargeting and retention, this is where this gets way more interesting because you have to use your existing customer data to actually inform what's happening here. If you have a business that does $500 a year and you've just started, this is going to be so much different than a business that does $20 million a year. I want to cater this to everyone, but I want to also be realistic. I'm going to hit someone who's in the $500K to $1 million annual revenue for their store right now. Just know that you could modify this to be greater than that if you have bigger audience sizes, or substantially smaller than that if you're just starting out. The most highest value for us right now is site visitors 30 days. Anyone who's been to your site over the last 30 days, smack it into a new audience. The second one that we're going to set up is a add to cart 90 days, because these are going to be more valuable than just the site visitors over the last 30 days. That's why we expand that to a 90-day window. What I would say is if you're just starting out, push these two together, add to cart 90 and site visitors 30. The next thing that's important here, and I'm not going to go through this in extreme detail, but exclude your add to cart 90 days from your site visitors 30 days. This is a higher value audience, and therefore it should be excluded from the other. We don't exclude these from your Advantage Plus. We don't exclude these from your prospecting. We don't mind the overlap there, but we just need to make sure these are here and they're visible and they're happening. Next piece, we are going to actually continue to quickly duplicate these, and we are going to move on to the retention side of this. So retention literally just stands for someone who's transacted for your business. They've given you $1 before. That's pretty much it. What we're going to want to do is take purchasers 180 days, which is going to be the maximum amount your pixel could actually handle a purchase event. Then we're also going to take purchasers all time. This is that inflection point where if you're a really large business and you have thousands and thousands and thousands of purchasers, you then want to expand this actually to, instead of just purchasers 180 days and purchasers all time, we should go purchasers all time 2x. And these are going to be people who have purchased more than once from you, which is going to be a substantially higher value audience than anything else. Across the board, this is our most general setup, and please be mindful, you could modify this, but don't go off the walls with 36 different audiences here that are all spending different amounts per day on an ABO campaign. Run a CBO campaign, keep this simple, run 3, 5, 6, 7 different audiences in total. We definitely want the add to cart 90, site visitors 30, purchase all time, purchase 180, and multiple purchasers if your business is big enough. Let's talk about ads and ad settings. I'm just going to go into one random campaign and just open up a random ad here. When you get into this specific ad, I think there's a couple things that are just really important. First off, name your ad properly. Don't just throw a random name in there. Name it something that you actually know and can identify. For example, if we're selling makeup, we're literally just putting makeup 1 and then at least put the date that this was launched so you could actually identify it with something. I'm just going to break down our basic settings for all of our ads, and then I'm going to tell you exactly what types of ads you should be running, how many ads you should be running. We're using manual uploads. We are not selecting multi-advertiser ads. Take that off. It's garbage. You're going to show up next to Temu, and that's about it. Then as we scroll down, when you're adding your media, make sure you add a combination of videos and pictures, which we're going to get to. So for your primary text and your headline and your description, enter one of each, because every time you enter another variation here, you could potentially reset the ad and reset your engagement, especially as you're cutting these variations out over time. Moving down, we are selecting optimized text per person. Your call to action 9 out of 10 times is shop now. It could be learn more. And then when we go to our destination, select website and shop. Very, very important. If you're running Facebook and Instagram shops, select website and shop. If you're not, set yourself a URL. In your URL parameters, set a UTM parameter. Just create that string of UTMs that will attach to everything. This is going to allow to see your data and what's actually working for you in platforms like Google Analytics or your Shopify marketing dashboard, and not just rely on the native Facebook click IDs. Now, the big question, how many ads should we be running per ad set? No matter which way I shake this out, no matter how much budget I spend, 4 to 6 ads is the sweet spot. I'm literally talking, if you're spending $100 a day or you're spending $10,000 a day, 4 to 6 ads just seems to work the best. Here's my theory on why this happens. I basically think that Facebook really quickly identifies 2 to 3 of those ads that just stink, cuts them out real quick. They usually get somewhere between like 5% of the spend. Then you're really dealing with a battle between 2 and 3 creatives. When you have just 6 ads in there and there's 2 or 3 creatives that are battling for that top spot, there's a good chance that they all get a healthy amount of spend. They all get tested vigorously, and it actually allows the winning ad to outperform and win. What I find is that when we get to that 8+ range, or really like 10+ range, then we start to get into that scenario, a sad face here, but when we get to that 10+ range in ads, we kind of just get to the scenario where it feels more random. It doesn't feel like the right creative always wins. And when we look at that 10+ ads across multiple ad sets, the same ads don't always win, which is a little weird. When we look at the 4 to 6, most of the time the same ads win, which is an indication of a strong creative and not an algorithm flaw. What's the next question? What kind of creative should you run for your brand? So you can run video ads, you can run statics, and then you can run catalog. You absolutely have to try everything. I'm just going to show you our creative playbook, and this is our literal playbook from inside of the agency, so feel free to get crazy on it. From a creative perspective, there are basically, as I mentioned, 3 creative formats: images, videos, and catalogs. First and foremost, for images, what we can do here is first we can have a product on a flat background, a studio product imagery shot. We can have a text-based image, real UGC, studio UGC, and studio model imagery. There are so many differences across all of these. Take note of each of these, Google them. There's all different kinds here. Similar story on the video side. We have text-based video, which is going to be very fundamentally basic video. We have real UGC, so it's like actually someone who's leaving a review for you. Then we have studio UGC, so that's someone that you paid to leave a review or paid to talk about your product. Moving down, we have studio model video, and this is like very professional, very well shot. Finally, the catalog, right? And we've talked about catalog a little bit throughout this. Now, I just want to be really, really clear. What's so important when you're running a catalog ad is that you actually have the most relevant features within your catalog. Do not just allow the normal Shopify feed to just do its thing. Edit your descriptions of every single product in your Shopify store. And furthermore, if you have hundreds and thousands of products, use GoDataFeed, use Channable. In terms of optimization, what we do for the graduation process of ads, we take those 4 to 6 ads that are running in that broad audience. If those 4 to 6 ads over the course of a 2-week period outperform our average ad, and now when I say outperform, I generally mean number of purchases, spend, and ROAS. So once these 4 to 6 ads run for about 2 weeks, if you have a very clear winner in this ad, and when I say winner, I'm talking it beats not only the ads within this 4 to 6 within this audience, but it beats most of the other account. So generally, winner equals top 10% of your entire performance. If all of this criteria is met, congratulations, you can graduate this ad from your normal prospecting campaign into your Advantage Plus campaign. Once you do that, you now have an Advantage Plus campaign that has proven ads that you know work for you. It is proven because they are working in a broad prospecting campaign already. Now, what do you do with the ad set that's already working? Don't touch it. Keep your ads where they are, where they're performing. Create duplicates of those ads, potentially even using post IDs to actually scale those ads steadily. Because we're using proven ads, proven engagement, proven ROAS or cost per acquisition, and we are scaling them into that ASC campaign. How are you actually optimizing the ads within these ad sets? So you're in your second interest, and for the sake of this, role play with me here. Instead of 1 ad, we have 4 to 6 ads in here. Let's just say it's 6 in total. All I want to look at are the core metrics. I want to understand what's driving purchases, what's not driving purchases. That's how we're going to decide what needs to get paused and what needs to be kept. Just make sure in all cases, every single ad that you run has probably between 10 and 14 days to run. Second, whenever you're running these ads, if you see an ad that has a particularly high click-through rate, or your cost per click is low, your outbound click-through rate is very high, one or the other, but it's not converting, that is an excellent opportunity for you to take that to your creative team and say, hey, there's something off here. Our click-through rate's really high, the message is strong, but we're not converting. Or vice versa. The CPC is really low, we're not sure what's going on here. What's even better for you is when you have an ad that converts really, really, really well, but the click-through rate's so low, because that just means you need to work on the hook. Really focus on each concept of the ad, especially if you take a lot of time in creating your ads. It's very important because that some of these little unlocks could happen so easily with just 1 or 2 iterations. You don't actually need to go above and beyond and create new creative concepts every single day, all the time. I'm actually going to break down the exact columns that we use. They are preset into this account, and I think these are just so important for everyone that's scaling. The most critical columns that you just need to have are your fundamental setup columns: delivery, actions, ad set name, bid strategy, and budget. That's going to be what's happening, what's most fundamental here. The second fundamental in terms of KPIs are going to be amount spent, purchases, cost per purchase conversion value, which is just revenue, ROAS. After that, everything else is a little bit secondary. From account to account, we might change some of these things. First, I love to have add to carts in every single account I run with. I like to have initiate checkouts as well, and I like to have cost per initiate checkout and cost per add to cart. They're just going to give me really quick gut checks on creatives or ad sets, because generally what we see is a direct correlation to better or cheaper add to cart rates and cheaper cost per purchase rates. Beyond that are secondary metrics that I think everyone really should have in every single one of their dashboards, but we're not literally over obsessing about our reach or our impressions or our click-through rates. We want to pay attention when we're doing the right analysis for them. I like outbound or link click CTR, cost per link click, frequency, reach, impressions, and CPM. This last piece, CPM, I always put this at the very back end of my column set because it's so easy for me to do a little flick here and get a quick pulse at our CPM. If there is any metric that you're thinking is not important here, this one is. CPM is your measure of how expensive it is to advertise. We have our column sets. We've graduated ads from prospecting into ASC. How do we optimize out of ASC, and how do we avoid a situation where ASC just has 100 active ads in it all the time? Once we've graduated ads into this campaign, the next most important piece is knowing when to pause them down. In all cases, no matter what, we give every single ASC ad 2 full weeks to run. However, 99% of the time, you are only taking ads that are proven and putting them into ASC. So I think that's so key here. This will only break when you don't follow the process properly. So if you're just taking ads that you think are going to do well and put them into ASC, then this is going to break all the time. ASC needs to be winners only. It's proven. They are winners. They are in the top 10% of your account, period. Once you set this formula, you can go back to your ads manager, and this is the easiest campaign to optimize because there's nearly no settings that you can adjust. The only 2 settings you can adjust are your cost per result goal and your budget. Because your cost per result goal is set based on what you need for your business relative to your target, don't touch it. If you are in a case where your budget's not being spent or spending like 30% of your budget or something, you might need to give this cost per result goal a few extra dollars to spend. Don't go too far. You probably need to reevaluate your creative if your cost per result goal is not being hit. Every time you scale, you have to understand that there's going to be thousands of impressions. These are all my examples of little impressions, and some of them, maybe the longer ones are worth more and the shorter ones are worth less. So these all happen within 1 day. Within the next 7 days, Facebook gives us the window to convert. If any of these people convert within the next 7 days and you pause your ads too early or you pull back your budget, you're going to see that these conversions start to trickle in here. What I want to be mindful of is that when we ramp up our budget for that first period of time, 2 things need to happen. Facebook needs to find more profitable people out there. This is going to be expanded, and there's going to be a lot less valuable people in this circle. The next thing that's going to happen is a lot of people are going to enter this 7-day window because a lot of people are going to click and enter that 7-day window. Once they're in that 7-day window, you have to be patient. So if you double your budget, you should expect a significant drawback in your performance over the short term. If you increase your budget steadily, 10 to 15 to 20% increments, especially on the ASC campaign, you should see less craziness, less turbulence, but still expect overall a little bit of a pullback followed by overall greater exposure. You could probably take this video, break it down word for word, and literally dissect it to apply it to your account, but it's going to take you dozens and dozens of hours, maybe weeks, to really get this full setup in play. Now, if you're running an e-commerce store, regardless of the size, you're probably focused on 100 different things. So if you want someone to help you with your ads, whether it's an entry-level expert all the way up to our complete white glove service that turns 7-figure brands into 8-figure brands, hit us up at themoonlighters.co. The link's in the description. And if you have any specific questions or comments, let us know in the comments below. Hit the like button and subscribe. I look forward to providing a ton more value. Thanks, everyone. Bye.